Yeah, I did.
Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order at 7:34. And if people have any background noise going on that they're either generating or somebody else is, if you could just sort of voluntarily mute yourself when you're not. I see, Dan, that you're muted. And Charlie, now you are too. So it just helps with making sure we're not hearing a bunch of static and everything. But you should, Natalie, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody should be able to just unmute themselves at will at this point because you unmuted people when they joined. Yeah.
Correct. Sorry, I muted myself.
Okay. Right. I realized that after I was like, are you answering? Okay, so we did solicit citizen comments electronically in advance of the meeting, but I believe we did not receive any. Okay, so moving forward to approval of the minutes, unless people feel like the first thing that should be done is just a recap of the governor's recommendation to table items. Are we just going to table them as we get to them, or are we doing that initially?
I would table them. Yeah.
I would table them as you get to them.
Okay. So as we otherwise would, then moving to approval of minutes from the March 12th, 2020 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 12th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I have a question, Martha.
Yes, Dan.
Do we need to make a motion to have this electronic type of meeting, or is it just a given that we can do it? I didn't know at the city council, they always begin these with a motion to go into this kind of meeting.
No, the governor has ordered that we have to do it this way. We can't do it the other way. So there's no motion required. There's no vote.
Yeah, I think that's probably just a special circumstance, special situation because of these circumstances. So, Dan, that's a good point. And obviously, when we're doing any electronic participation at other times, I think you're right. But not only do we not need to, but we also, I think, in accordance with what the governor was requiring, we issued all of the advance notice and made sure that the public knew that it was happening in this way. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to approval of bills then.
Martha, before we go on, we had a meeting on March 14th. There's no minutes about the walk around in the park. So I think next month we ought to have the minutes from the March 14th meeting too.
There's several minutes, Ruben Marcos. There's several executive sessions. So next month you'll give us those minutes? At our next
executive session. That was just a meeting we had on March 14th, Saturday, the walk around.
You're correct.
Okay, so one issue then is Pat is saying that we need the minutes from that walk around. The question then would be, did somebody take minutes? I can't remember.
Yes, I gave them to Brian.
Oh, okay. So we'll have those at the next meeting, and thank you for reminding us about that. And then Brian, what were you saying just now about executive session then?
There's a bunch of executive session minutes to be passed at the next executive session.
Okay. All right. So then, so we'll have the minutes from the March 14th. Was it Saturday, March 14th?
Yes.
Okay. So then we were going to move on to approval of the bills for dated April 16th, 2020. Brian, do you want to tell us about these?
Ready for me?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Did we vote on approving we did, the minutes. I apologize.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, so here's the April 16th bills. You'll see on your hard copy, by the way, you all got hard copies because I didn't know if you had a second device. So at any rate, there's a lot of refunds. Those are spring camps and one rental. We had 2 spring camps. We're going to have 2 spring camps, Imaginary Game and our normal spring camp. So there's all those refunds are due to the COVID-19. So you'll see several of those. As I go down and look at the bill, some of the unusuals, You'll see imaginary game, spring camp, and you'll see $4,280. That's a class that he taught, and some spring camps that did not ask for a refund. They did it electronically with John Dalton. So that's John Dalton's share of those of the camp and the class. As we further go down, the Russo bill is high. We needed a new leaf blower for the parks now that we're going to start the cut probably next week. And then there's $800 to Psychich. That's the final payment for the audit. That's the final third payment. So we're done with them. And then the rest of the bills are normal unless I'm missing something. Safety deposit rental. That's at Chase Bank, which has,
Okay.
Brian, what's the John Dalton?
what's that?
John Dalton?
That was
DALTON.
the imaginary game.
Okay.
It's
all right.
imaginary game.
So did we pay him but we didn't have the imaginary games?
We had a class that went full, correct, Natalie? That was bill number one. And then we had imaginary game and we refunded 4 of maybe the 12 kids that were in it. Then he did it on online, the imaginary game. So several people decided they didn't want the refund. They would take the online version.
So we have revenue somewhere else for that though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
They're imaginary, Pat.
I see. Got it.
So given that we're going to be having a lot more refunds than average, and perhaps just as a point of, perhaps moving forward in this way, just so that it's more clear when we look at the bills, is there an easy way, and I don't know if this is a question for Jerry too, but for us to section out, not just to view the refunds as separate than payments, but also to see a different total of refunds as opposed to total of bills. Because as we've talked about previously, if we take in money, but then we just refund the money, that's not the same as paying money out to vendors or, for services or any of that. So I don't know. I see that it's alphabetical. I think especially because of all of the refunds that are going to be happening, but even just period, I'd like to see them separately. I don't know if we can do that.
Yeah. So if you go to page 2 of the bills, and
Yeah.
at the bottom, it says program revenue C105, you'll see all the refunds, their names and the camps that were canceled. Actually, 2 were a rental and the rest were spring camps, but we can put in the specific camp or class that the refund comes from. You see
Okay,
that?
and so then that section, C105, that total of 4405, that is just for refunds? Is that a place of totaling the refunds?
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's good enough detail then, I would say. I know we went over something similar to this last month. Yeah, I'm fine with that. That's good enough. That is exactly what I was asking for. Okay, so any other questions or issues with the bills?
I'll make a motion to approve the bills in the amount of $24,679.84.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Just a question. Brian, are we going to get a hard copy of this? Are we going to get a hard copy of everything that we have online?
At your house.
It's in your
At the house?
envelope.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we delivered it yesterday.
Okay.
You're in Wisconsin?
Yes.
Stuck there.
Okay,
Can I
so
cut? We ready for petty cash?
yeah, moving on to petty cash.
Okay, sorry. As you look at petty cash, we did a staff lunch meeting. Another Bill's Drive-In, it's closed. We won't go there for a long time. Well, hopefully we go there soon, but we're not going there. Red's Garden Supply was compost for garden to table gardens at 908 Seward. Amazon Garden to Table Supplies. Zoom, obviously, it's a monthly charge for what we're doing right now. The Adobe Systems was some technology for Natalie to edit things. And then Sam's Club's our annual renewal.
I'll make a motion to pass the petty cash in the amount of $291.75.
I just have a question about Sam's. That seems high. That's what it costs every month? Is that a
No,
separate rate?
no. That's annual renewal for the year.
For your card,
I
to be a
think
member.
it can go.
Right. But the member rate individually is something like $40. Is it higher for like businesses
Well,
or?
they don't get taxes charged.
Yeah, we have the business membership, so we can go at 7 a.m.
Oh,
So, and then we have at least 3 people on there. So that's the fee.
and then you also don't pay sales tax when you shop at Sam's?
Oh, no, we don't pay sales tax. We're
Okay.
exempt.
Not anywhere, you shouldn't.
We don't pay anywhere.
Yeah, we're
technically.
tax exempt.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
I think I heard Pat first. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so moving on to monthly reports then.
Okay. My first paragraph's all about the governor, and hopefully he will give us information if he's going to extend the order very soon. That'll affect our programs. He also relaxed Open Meetings Act, which we all know, so we're doing this electronically. We must pass bills, petty cash, and hopefully roof bid for the Garage Art Studio at minimum. The weekly lunch program distributed at Cayman Park has been going very, very well. Matt's volunteered a couple times. Debbie has also. We have an average of over 3,000 meals given away. That's 10 meals in a bag. Over 300 bags are distributed every Monday from 1 to 4. That's actually, the latest numbers are 397 bags last Monday. So we're up to about 400 bags of food going out. The City of Evanston, District 65, District 202 have been awesome in helping and establishing this program. Basically, the city works in the building and Ridgeville works outside the building at this program. Social distancing is a big part of flattening the curve of this virus, and we must help remind folks to keep their distance in our parks. Play circuits have been closed per the governor's order. This is to help protect children from the COVID-19 virus. We also taped off the areas, posted signs that state the equipment is closed. Basketball rims are also down. This has discouraged groups from gathering and further encourage social distancing. Some really good news. We have received 2 rebates from our insurance carriers, one from Illinois Public Risk Fund for $1,400. It is a result of no workman's compensation claims over the year. Actually, we haven't had one in several years. The other is a rebate from iParks from our major insurance policy to help us assist management efforts related to the virus and related to loss of income. Ryan Hankovich, our rep, Eddie Wood used to be our rep. Ryan's our rep. He called and let us know that they're doing that for every park district, basically returning 10%. We also received a grant check, from Lincolnwood Garden Club of Evanston to assist our youth garden program, which will be spent in July, if I'm correct, Natalie, July. Yeah. Hopefully that program goes, and we're doing some summer programs, and basically just please be safe. If you're in our parks, help us out with social distancing. We've had very few complaints, if any, about that issue.
What was the amount of the grant for the gardens?
They awarded us $500.
Okay.
It's specifically for the Youth Garden Corps program that we're partnering on with the city. So that program and the other parts of the Marist Summer Youth Employment Program are kind of on hold right now until we get further instruction about the summer and funding and stuff. So as I get updates, I'll let you know. But the grant was specifically to help support that program on our end.
Okay. And is that Lincolnwood as in the school Lincolnwood, or what is the Lincolnwood Garden Club of Evanston? I'm not familiar.
It's a garden club that's in Lincolnwood, and they offer I believe they used to be based in Evanston, or at some point, or they have a connection between Skokie, Lincolnwood, and Evanston, but they offer just grant assistance. So I applied for that. Oh gosh, in January or February, and I hadn't heard from them, but then we got a check in the mail. So we got some assistance, which was really nice. So I'll keep you posted. I know they sent a letter with the check. So as soon as I get my hands on that and get some more details, I'll fill you in. But it was really nice of them to offer that.
Great. Well, thank you for applying for that too, Natalie. Okay, thank you for that report, Brian. And what are we doing for Jerry's report since he's not here to talk about it? He usually goes through it in great detail.
I can highlight it for you.
Okay.
Okay, so what you have here is a cover page, and then he gave you a balance sheet, a statement of revenues, appropriation ledger, outstanding items, and treasury fund reconciliation sheet. Anyways, I'm not going to read it word for word. I highlighted some areas of the cover page. And basically, the Cook County Clerk's office is closed to the public, so things might be working a little slower than normal. But at the present time, the levity edit process is on track to proceed normally. The clerk will notify the district if anything changes. The balance sheet that you have attached to this reflects a shift from tax receivables to cash and investment balances as receipts of the first installment of the 2019 property tax bills have been credited to the district by Cook County Clerk. Seasonally, the district has its highest level of monthly expenditures during the summer months. Another view of historical comparisons, 60% exactly matches last year's budget at the same point in time, suggesting year-to-date expenditures are on track with historical guideposts. So the budget's looking fine. As we go further down, payroll expenses tend to run a tad over the target because of timing issues. A better utilization target number for the payroll is 75%. Again, adjusted target spending levels are within the budget for the most part. Outstanding items are generally current and reasonable. There's a few issues that will come up that we're working on, but basically that'll happen next month if necessary, if it's not approved already in the April bills. For now, simply be advised from Jerry that these are unapproved items that exist, but not a major problem. Treasury funds reconcilement. So right now in the bank at Chase, we have $486,000. This is $236,000 over the FDIC limits. Well, that should scare you a little bit, but there's a good reason for it. In compliance with state requirements and the required collateral agreement intended to protect the district from loss should the bank fail, Chase has provided monthly statement noting U.S. Treasury notes have been set aside at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York as collateral for this amount. So in other words, we don't have to do anything. The remaining $770,000 of total fund monies is invested across 4 investment relationships at Byline, Wintrust, U.S. Bank, and Illinois funds. Currently, with the exception of Chase, no other institution is holding more than the FDIC insurance limit of $250,000. So that's it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or issues with any of that?
Nope.
Okay, let's move on to Natalie's report then.
In the light of COVID-19, we've canceled most of our spring programming, as you know, and offered refunds to families. The cancellations include the Golden Egg Hunt, our spring break camps, our half-day workshops, and at least half of the Studio 908 spring class session. The tentative plan, assuming that we can go back to gathering, is to offer a 4-week half spring session from May 3rd to May 30th. I don't know if that will happen. I've held off on offering refunds for the classes until I know for sure if we'll be able to run those 4 weeks, mostly so that we didn't have to do the refund paperwork multiple times and offer partial refunds and then go back and do it again. So assuming the social distancing protocols last or extend through May, then we'll offer full refund to everybody that had signed up for classes. I've been coordinating with our instructors to offer some free live stream classes through our Facebook page. They've been very well attended virtually, which is great. And they remain on our Facebook page so that they could be accessed and utilized by the community at any time. I'm continuing to search for ways to bring more programming to the community that's safe and efficient. The classes we've offered online have included yoga, creative movement for children, ballet, bar and stretch, and an intro to seed starting. Additionally, the only program that we do have running right now is our Garden to Table program. So there's protocol in place. All of the class sessions for Garden to Table are being held virtually with the students and our instructor, Abby. And then the students, the participants are coming to work on their beds and practicing social distancing if they do happen to be there at the same time. We've got cleaning wipes and different things in the garage art studio so that they can make sure to wipe down their handles. We're also still cleaning the space as well. So that program is still running right now. And also the Elks Garden remains open for the people who have rented those plots. They're also practicing social distancing if they're there. I don't think a lot of them have been to their beds yet due to weather and a number of other things. So as we roll into May, if the social distancing continues, then we'll address some appropriate protocols and put up signage for that. Marcos and Ruben have done a really great job of getting all the gardens ready. They look great. And I do have to give credit to Catherine Egan, who is going to be leading our youth grow, summer grow team. She helped me with that grant that I wrote. She found that for me. We worked on it together. So she's really fantastic. I'm really excited to have her around and see what we can do moving into the summer with this program. I've paused most of my efforts to schedule summer programming at this point. Again, just waiting on some guidance from the state and city levels on how to bring us all back together. It feels uncomfortable to go from 0 to 100 and just throw people back together for a concert or a farmer's market. So waiting on some guidance from Governor Pritzker on how we're gonna move forward there. I do have some of the concerts scheduled. I have plenty of people that I'm researching and looking into people that I can reach out to finish that scheduling, but I'm holding off on contracts right now. Same with farmers market vendors. We have both the Mudlark Theater and the Arc Theater are working on their summer Shakespeare shows. They're on pause right now until we know what our programming is going to look like. Other than that, I've been interviewing some summer camp candidates virtually. I had interviewed a few before this started, so I do have I think most of our summer staffing in place, assuming that we get to move ahead with summer. Again, I've been in communication with them. Everybody's on standby and just waiting for us to know how things are going to move forward. I've also met with some of our partner organizations on other events that we had planned for the summer, including the Anti-Racism Festival of the Arts, the Juneteenth Parade. I had a meeting with Kimon and Martha, and our Youth Grow Team partnership with the city of Evanston. A lot of events are being postponed at this time, or they're being reimagined to be offered virtually to the community. So as those plans unfold, I'll continue to keep you all updated on that. And then I'm using social media to share opportunities with the community for ways they can participate in all kinds of stuff. So if, other organizations, I know the library's been doing different things, the city's been offering different things, just trying to share those opportunities with folks so that they can participate. So if there's anything that you hear of that comes up that I could share with the community through social media, please let me know. I am just anxious to do stuff. So so keep me posted.
Thank you, Natalie. I would like to see us spend more than whatever our monthly average is for advertising on Facebook, because as we know, nobody's really seeing flyers in our physical building or any of that sort of in-person advertising. I suppose those I forget what we call them, those message boxes that are on posts in the parks. I suppose people could be seeing that still because they might walk by it, but whatever we're spending on average for Facebook ads, if we could maybe spend a little bit more during this time, because if we're going to continue offering some things to be streamed, it would be great to just get the word out, even better that those things are happening. And I think, I don't know really what's true for everybody else, but with my algorithm, despite visiting the Ridgeville Facebook page pretty frequently, I don't always see those things with a lot of advance notice. Sometimes by the time they show up for me, something has already happened or it's about to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So some of that like targeted advertising that they offer, which you can really kind of customize the amount that you spend and which zip codes you target and things like that. So if we could do more of that right now, that would be great.
I'm not sure what we would advertise right now.
Yeah.
Other than like, if we're doing like these free streamed classes, yeah, for sure. But normally I would use, and we haven't actually done any yet this year. That was going to begin in the spring when we were planning, summer events and things like that. But now that everything is on hold, I haven't actually spent any money on Facebook posting. So yeah, I don't know. So it would be kind of weird
to advertise like camp or programs when we don't know if they're happening.
Yeah, no, I meant to advertise the streaming things that we're doing. And I know that we've done those free and open to everybody. There are, of course, a lot of companies that are offering digital, engagement opportunities that are paid. So if this does extend for a lot longer, we could start exploring offering some programming that people actually would pay for, just like they pay for the rest of our in-person programs. So obviously that's an option. But even if we're just offering things for free, the seed starting thing and the dance thing and all of that, I just feel like if we could really let people know those things are happening instead of it just being sort of like 1 or 2 or 3. What was the participation level like for all of those things?
They've been viewed, all of them have been viewed like well over 100 times.
Oh, good.
I've been cross-posting quite a bit and sharing them on different Evanston pages and also Rogers Park pages. We've actually driven up our Facebook traffic quite a bit just from doing that. So yeah, it never hurts to promote the Facebook page, because all that does is just make people more aware of the park district. So so I can certainly look into that. I can certainly look into like doing a general promotion of like the park district, which will drive people to the page, and then they'll see that we're offering the free online classes. And I can also use that in our ads as well.
Natalie and Brian,
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
I want to give a shout out to you and your crew on all that you've done during this COVID time. Just keeping the park safe is a huge benefit to all of us. And also giving out hundreds of meals to families, that's a big deal. And I hope that you feel supported by our board and our community in all that you're doing to serve our community during this COVID time. And also, I hope as a board, maybe next month, we can talk about a new way to use this COVID time to evaluate your performance. In the past, it's been somewhat based, one of the metrics we use is income and programming and those numbers. But with this COVID reality, I personally feel it's not fair to use those same measurements, and we just have to think through as a board how we want to support you during this time in a different way, if that makes sense.
Well, I thank you for that, but Marcos and Ruben, outstanding. And
Yeah.
again, City of Evanston, District 65, District 202, they're doing all sorts of work behind the scenes. And what you might see at Cayman Park is the result. And it's working well, keeping the park safe. Social distancing is huge. Really, the only issue that we've had come up is dogs. It's not dogs, but adults walking dogs, standing close together, socializing. So that's basically the only thing that we've seen and heard about. And at the Monday lunch meals, we have people stand 6-7 feet apart. You have to come by and see it. It works really well. But again, Shannon from the City of Evanston, Lawrence Hemingway, District 202, District 65, outstanding.
Yeah. Also, I think perhaps next month, if we could hear from you, Brian, Natalie, and just sort of projected end of our fiscal year projection. I'm assuming because of COVID, some of our funds will not be fully expended. And the only fear that I have is that we end up on June 30 at the end of our fiscal year with some of those funds not spent. So I would like us as a board to spend some time analyzing that next month to see what we can do to make sure that we expend those funds.
Right. We will do that.
Thank you.
To that point, Brian, do you feel like there are particular areas that were, unusually at risk for not spending money that we budgeted, or are we pretty on track, or what?
Well, it depends on what happens with summer programs. Obviously, the summer programs are curtailed. There's all sorts of program supplies that aren't going to be ordered, things of that nature. But there's also areas where we are spending too much money because we need one area is office supplies. Another area might be R14 parks. We're doing a lot of work this week and next week in the parks. We ordered benches. We're going to something to discuss in May is the drinking fountains. I'm waiting for the governor to tell us what's going to happen. Because if social distancing is a problem, I don't think drinking fountains should be turned on, but I'm going to wait and see, check with the city. But we have a few projects there. The display board went up today, the back doors going in. So we're spending money in certain areas, but less in other areas, depending on what happens program-wise. That's where we'll underspend if this continues, in program supplies and program wages.
And do we know if the governor has done or said anything specific to our budget in terms of changing any regulations around, obviously these might be questions for Jerry, but once we budgeted to certain areas of the budget, we don't have total freedom to move money from one place to another. We also can't, spend past a certain deadline, that end of the fiscal year. Have there been any changes because of this situation regarding that?
I don't know. I'm not sure. But if we continue to do refunds, we're going to be sending back $100,000. And then at the end of the year, here comes your budget, and income doesn't match projections. So it's a big puzzle. But if it doesn't match and we keep sending money back, I've already had the discussion with Jerry. Ridgeville is flush in reserves, and that's what it's there for, to make that budget match and work. So I'll meet with Jerry actually tomorrow morning, and we can discuss a little bit about that whole issue, that whole puzzle, as we get to the May 14th meeting, where I can report on unspent line items, or line items that aren't going to be spent to the max. Usually there's pennies in each line item, and we might return $3,000, $4,000 in each side of the budget. There's going to be accounts over, and there's going to be accounts way under. So it's a puzzle. Line
Okay.
items.
And Charlie, were you going to say something about that? Do you know anything about any changes that have been issued?
Charlie, we're looking at you.
Sorry, I couldn't hear. No, I'm not aware of anything that the governor said or done on that. You know, I'm trying to keep an eye on the proclamations as they come out. I've not seen anything on that.
Okay.
I don't know if he'll address it or not.
Okay. Okay, so I think unless anyone has any other questions for Natalie, or if Natalie, if you have anything to add, I think we'll move to the update from the Ready Committee. And Natalie and Dan and myself and Pat have spoken and have, you know, sort of met regarding how we're planning to move forward in this context with the equity work that we've, you know, previously planned to do. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Pat Effiam to speak first, and then we'll go from there. If that's okay with you, Pat, to sort of give a summary of what we've talked about, including that we asked you to revisit your proposal and sort of talk about what you think we can do versus what might need to be sort of on hold for right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Good to see you and be seen. We did have an opportunity to meet. Let me first tell you where we started. We had initially six goals that we wanted to accomplish, and that was to develop an equity assessment, and then and to identify individuals and partners who we were going to interview to hear what they had to say about the Ridgeville Park districts. In addition, we wanted to administer that survey and then get a report to you by the end of June on what that survey results were. And so what we have been able to accomplish is we did get the survey developed. As you know, obviously with the COVID, that put on hold how we would get that survey out. What we talked about in our most recent meeting is that seems like a piece that we're not going to be able to get out in any major way. We were going to have 3 focus groups, and we were going to have 2 large town hall meetings. Obviously, neither one of those are going to, well, at least the town hall meetings are not possible. We can still do some focus group work, which we'll intend to do some of that. In addition to that, meeting with your partner organizations and individuals. So I have continued to meet. This COVID time, it's as sad as it is, it also has brought out some of the equity issues within the city. And so I have been meeting with both the mayor, the Evanston Public Library. They have an equity committee that they seated, much like the one we'll talk about in a minute, the Ready Committee. And they are meeting consistently. They were meeting once a month prior to this. They're now meeting, obviously by teleconference, they're meeting twice a month. And they're meeting because of all the issues that are coming to the library. We've had several incidents, and I'm happy to talk with you offline, but several incidents that have just highlighted the disparity between Black America and white America in this COVID time. And, you know, it's the reality of the situation, but it's also the reality of why this work needs to continue. The YWC likewise has said that they're really pushing, they're continuing their work. And so we will be meeting with them, I think the week of April 20th through the 26th to talk about what other organizations are doing, what our partner organizations and other organizations in Evanston are doing to battle some of the inequities that are showing up. In addition to that, what we wanted to do was to get the board trained. We wanted to get the READY committee, that's the Racial Equity and Diversity Committee, Inclusion Committee. We wanted to get them up and going. Fortunately, the groundwork was already laid for that prior to this whole COVID pandemic. And so we do have people that we believe are still interested, and we will get them seated. That is our next step, is to get them seated and begin training them right away. What we have done with that is to create for them a charter, excuse me, a charter, a mission statement, purposing and objectives and goals, and then what are our equity definitions. So we want to get them into training with that. We expect that we will this will sort of be a rolling process where we'll be able to add people as necessary, but also to recognize that some people are not going to be able to take this on at this time. And what we will do with those is to make them equity ambassadors, so that they will be on a list that they can pick and choose how they want to be involved. But that ambassador committee will ultimately continue to feed your READY committee. So you will have, the whole point is to embed this so you all can get out from contractual work and be able to do this on your own. So if we build that committee correctly and the ambassadors, they will have the tools necessary to carry Ridgeville forward once we get set. We wanted to do some training with the board. I think that depending on you all's schedules, I think it would be a great time for us to get together and do, we want to do an implicit bias, equity, and cultural competency, but also a really, really good time. Race is a very hard thing to talk about, believe it or not, both for me, who works with it every day, for white people who don't work with it every day. You know, what do I call you? Are you Black? Are you African American? Is it Hispanic or Latino or Latinx? What is it? So it'd be really good time for us to have some sort of informal conversations and get comfortable with the language that we would like to use, and how to talk to, how to talk about race without it becoming, well, it's always going to be uncomfortable, but how can we talk about race and be comfortable in being uncomfortable? So that's where we're going with that. I'd love to, so to get the board trained, to get the READY committee up and going. And in addition, there are some things that we can do. We don't want to overtax the community. We don't want to stretch people who are already stretched thin. There are some things that are in place. Brian, the meal program is already in place. What we'd love to do is to get a half sheet out, either on a table out there or in the bags, or however that might happen. We can also talk to Lawrence if we need to. But to get a half sheet out to ask people, number one, are they interested? Is this even an area of interest for them right now? But also to do sort of some surveying of what are people feeling in this time of crisis? Where do they feel like they're not being adequately served, or that they're being adequately served? So it would be a great time for us to touch a community that maybe we wouldn't always see, but it would not put the pressure on them to have to stand and answer questions. But so if we dropped it in there, they could either drop it in a box coming back, or they could bring it back, or they could email us. But to tap into that pool, I think would be really incredible at this time, and to give us some input. In addition, talking to Natalie and Martha and Dan, it would be really great to be able, here's a chance where we could also offer to the community some of the very conversations that I was talking about. I'll send Martha and Natalie a link. When I started at the city, the mayor was very hesitant, and he was very open with me to talk about this issue of race publicly, and he just didn't know how to talk about it. But finally that year we did what's called Conversations on Race, and we had that on YouTube Live. And it went exceptionally well, and people were able to listen in and hear stories and feel some of the discomfort, but also learn it's really okay to talk about these things. So I think in terms of programming, some of the programming we could do, Natalie, together is to have a couple of those sessions and to get them out there and invite people to join them. And so that's kind of where we're at. What we talked about was the district continuing to be ready to move forward. That is clearly the case. And I just want to applaud that effort, because what's happening is where we haven't been talking about equity, diversity, inclusion, we're now seeing that there's an explosion of these conversations because of what's happening. I can tell you on a personal note, someone brought me some masks, and they were black masks, and we put them on. And my husband and I went out to go walking, and a friend said, "Gosh, you all look like you're going to rob a bank." And I just sent it out joking and said, "Yeah, it does look like that." But sure enough, in the very next day, I sent Natalie and Martha the link to a story that said some blacks are refusing to wear masks because that's for that exact reason. And so I think these are tangible items that can help us talk about race in a way that we're experiencing it now, so it becomes relevant for us, and we don't have to give examples that were past or historical, but rather this is what we're watching in our city, in our community, in the nation right now. None of it, well, very little of it's intentional. It is what it is, and so moving forward, I think the two things that we will really focus on, or the things that we will really focus on, are if the board has the time to get some training in, we can do those in 45-minute sessions. We can do them late at night or early in the morning, or you all have to tell me if you have that kind of time commitment, and then to get this ready committee seated and get them trained. So we can do that all in the next month or so. That's what we'll be working on to get that accomplished. Did I cover it all, Natalie and Martha?
Yeah, I think so. I have a couple of things to add and some questions as well, if that's all right.
Oh, please.
I wanted to just say, in terms of more fully forming that ready committee with the addition of people from the community, Natalie contacted today all the people who had filled out the survey that was sent out, a couple of months ago, I think, is when that went out. So we haven't heard back from anybody. It just went out a few hours ago, but it's basically the first official follow-up, I think, to the people who completed that survey, saying that they either wanted to be committee members or wanted to just be kept up to date about what we're doing, or wanted to volunteer, or the various levels of participation that we presented to them as what they could select, I think is how it worked. So hopefully we find out that the people who initially expressed interest in being on the committee are still willing and able. Obviously, the current context may have changed that for people, and that's fine. So we'll just see how people are feeling about that. If they are not able to participate right now, Pat's suggestion was that we just see if they would be, wanting to be contacted about 3 months from now, or whatever the timeline ends up being when things return to normal. And if for some reason, things have changed for them so much that they are not able to, we can cross that bridge when we come to it, but we can always issue another wave of communication to our stakeholders and see who is willing and able to join the committee. We might even, find that there's additional people who didn't say they were interested initially, but are willing and able to do that into the future. So Natalie will keep us updated about who gets back to us on that. And
just if I can, just to clarify, I only emailed the people who indicated that they were interested in being on the committee.
Okay.
There were like maybe 2 or 3 other people that I did hear from who just wanted to stay in the loop of things. I didn't reach out to them today. I focused just on the committee members to see if they were able at this time to move forward with that work, or if they wanted to pick it up, in a few months.
Also, from my point of view, I'm not looking for warm bodies from our community to join our equity committee. I'd like us to have a committee vetting process so that any candidates that are considered, we actually as a committee look at that carefully. I just want to make sure that we're not just filling it with warm bodies, but trying to fill our committee with those skill sets that we need to help us do the tough work. And not everybody who wants to be on the committee would be a good fit.
And Dan, thank you for that input. That becomes very important. What we did with the Evanston Public Library group was that we did a speed dating. In other words, we had an orientation night where they got to talk to several people around the room for 10 or 15 minutes each. And then the the committee then decided who should be on that committee, who would we select from that committee, that becomes very important. And the first thing we would do is, for those who have expressed interest, is to immediately have an orientation. So they first, what are we getting into? How many hours? What are we talking about? What are we trying to do here? So once they went through that orientation, then we could kind of run through and chat with them and see if they're appropriate for the committee.
Also, in our committee meeting, we were wanting to get some data from Brian regarding this fiscal year's allotment of what I thought was $14,000 for the equity work. I'm just wondering where we are with that and how much is left.
Right. So I gave you an update last month where we have $6,500. I'm sorry. Yeah, $6,500 committed out of the 14,000. That hasn't changed. Not one dime was spent in April in this petty cash or bills. So we have $7,500 left.
And
Okay.
that includes the full contract with Pat, is that right?
Yeah, Pat's contract is included in the 6,500.
So a question that came up in our committee meeting at some point, Martha, I don't know when you want to talk to the board about it, but the question was, in light of this COVID, how should we expend that money? Is there an equitable way to do that? So that's just a question for our board.
Right, and that is a concern across the budget entirely, obviously, to make sure that we spend the money that we've budgeted to spend, but within the context of equity, if there's, work that we were going to do that we can't do, I think it's probably something we could plan to move forward with if everyone is okay with this, that we would go ahead and pay Pat the amounts that we've already approved, even if that work can't be completed within the fiscal year. I don't know what the restrictions are on that, because I know Jerry has some rules around, work being paid for within one fiscal year but completed in another year, and how that has to get accounted for, whether it goes to the year that the payments were made or whether it goes to the year. And so those of you who have been on the board for longer than me, like Pat McCord, I don't know if you know more about that than I do, but if we could plan to pay Pat, and just sort of figure out the execution of the work itself as we find out, what the timeline ends up being for the social distancing and how that's going to affect our work. But yeah, when we spoke with our existing Ready committee, it was just reiterated by a number of us that we have no intention of diminishing the amount that we had agreed to pay Pat for the work. So that's just, I think Dan wanted to make sure, and I fully agree, that there are no changes to that at this point in time. That being said, there's still money that was, we didn't have a plan for. It's obviously quite a few dollars. So yeah, we should definitely be putting some thought, and Pat, maybe we could use your guidance there too, as to, the best use of those funds. When we discussed possibly contributing in a sponsor, a financial sponsorship to the Juneteenth parade, which of course may or may not happen at this point. We talked about how sometimes, having good intentions and wanting to spend money in ways that appear to be and are intended to be, equitable ways is a noble pursuit, but that's not quite good enough. It's like we need to make sure that that money is actually going to the community in a way that benefits people from an equity perspective, instead of just, oh, look, we donated money to this, or this event or this organization. A donation is maybe not the best way to use those funds, and we discussed that previously. That being said, now we might need to get creative. So perhaps all of us can just brainstorm on that, maybe a little bit now or just into the future, as to how we're going to spend the rest of the equity budget.
Well, Martha, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Well, I was just going to say that we had talked about perhaps trying to reach out to the population of people who are picking up food from the Monday food distribution. And if the, I think it sounded like Lawrence Hemingway said that there's maybe going to be Brian, you were telling me there's going to maybe be a daily lunch at, what is it, at James?
No, I thought it was daily. It's Wednesdays at James Park from 11 to 1 o'clock.
Oh, okay. And is that like you pick up a lunch at that particular one?
You pick up a box of food. You drive by in your vehicle, basically, and they give you a box of food. I don't know if they ask any questions about how many kids or anything like that. But it's from 11 to 1 on
I
Wednesday.
think you tell them how many people there are in your family, and then they give you accordingly in a box.
Okay. And I mean, I was just going to say that, you know, that lunch thing and the existing thing it came in and whatever other locations, Dan was, you know, mentioning that, I think it was Dan when we spoke with the Ready Committee, that we might not just reach out to people through Cayman, but, you know, why not reach out to anybody who's picking up from any of the sites that are also within our boundaries, as long as the city doesn't have any issues with that. I just think that, you know, like I said before, we're not really reaching people as much as we otherwise would with things like posters and banners and, you know, the physical in-person kind of advertising, so to speak. And so, so Pat, Effium, if we like, you talked about a half sheet that could go into the boxes or bags of food. You know, we can perhaps get creative about other things that we distribute, and that some of the money could go to that. So I don't know if we want to do, you know, art supplies or books, you know what I mean? Books for kids. And also, as we've talked about, it's not just like, what do we think people need, but finding out what they actually say they need. Right, Pat?
Yes.
So, you know, that's an additional step, of course, but it absolutely makes sense to do. But then the first question of, you know, of course, is how do we reach out to those people and ask them what do people need right now, and how can we meet those needs? You know,
in our committee, Martha, I brought up the District 65's PEP fund. That's the PTA equity program that's been up and going, but because of the COVID situation, it has grown. The fund has grown, I believe, to about 125,000 right now. And what 65 is doing with that, they're using an algorithm to distribute those funds equitably across the whole city's district to the most needy families. And each building, each school, principal and social workers and clinicians will try to distribute that to according to the needs of those particular families in their school that are highest of need. So some of the work you're talking about has already happened, just so that's one option out there.
And let me share with you that what's coming out of this is that the communities are speaking. We may not be touching them, but we're realizing that. I shared with the group that there is a group called Evanston Own It. It is pastors in the 5th Ward who pastor predominantly Black churches. There are 14 pastors that participate in that group. And one of the things that they were just given a $25,000 grant on Monday, because what the mayor of the city realized was somehow we are just not reaching the Black community. We were also not reaching the Latinx community. So the Latinx community was also given $25,000. They said to the Latinx community had lots of guidelines. You have to call us, you have to go through a phone interview, we'll talk to you, and then we'll decide if you should get some of this money. The Black community said, our people aren't going to call. There's too much suspicion. There's too much this. So when they spoke out, then the foundation immediately said, okay, let's give that money to the church. Let them figure out who their membership are, who their membership is. And I think so there are lots of opportunities, like Dan said, that are already out there that we can reach people that we're just not reaching, that, you know, for whatever reason are not reachable. We're having lots of problems in the 5th Ward, even with kids who are going to the park to pick up their food. Well, they don't have transportation. And they're trying to carry this food home, and their parents are, in many cases, their parents aren't home. So what can we do in that manner? One of the things this group is looking at is perhaps they can pick up the food and deliver it to these children's homes. The other issue that's coming out is they don't distinguish the meal program. It's wonderful. Don't hear this as a criticism, but they don't distinguish between it's for kids between the ages of 3 and 18 or something like that. But they don't distinguish if you're an 18-year-old, what you're getting are snacks. You know, you're getting Cocoa Puffs and so what we really is to subsidize some of those meals even that they're providing for a week. Kids are home for much longer. Parents are figuring out they don't just have to feed them lunch, but they have to feed them dinner and breakfast. So there are many groups and organizations that we can tap into to find out where the greatest needs are. The city is staying on top of it. Let me just take a minute to give kudos to our mayor, who has gotten national credit because of his work. His work is he is natural disasters. And so he owns a company. And so he has been able to position us really well in Evanston so that we have a task force that meets once a week to hear what needs are coming up. I'd be happy to plug you into that so that you could hear those needs directly and respond to those. The other thing that I would also say to you is once you all decided to move forward, we can get all this work done in this fiscal year with the exception of the survey. We would not complete the survey before June 30th. We just wouldn't want, we would have some information collected on it. What would be left is to survey the larger community and to write a final report. And that piece, I don't think we just can't, it just depends on, as Natalie has been saying all night, it depends on what happens, whether we open or close.
Okay. So I lost track of where I was. Let me just look at my notes here. I think reaching out to PEP, finding out exactly what it is that they're doing, and when and how, and seeing obviously if we can somehow fit into that, even just as simple as making a financial contribution or whatever that may look like. That's definitely a good option. And then I think, Pat, we can get maybe more specifics from you later, but finding out exactly what you think we should put into the food distribution in terms of communication and possibly using that as just an additional way to reach out to individuals about any needs that might be out there. And then it sounded like it was Claire Ruin. I meant to reach out to her. I didn't get a chance since I spoke with you, Brian, that she was the one who was helping to distribute some art supplies. I just love the idea that there's, art supplies being given out in addition to food. And so if that's something that we can help beef up by, adding to that or making sure that that's given out weekly or something like that.
Natalie, can you touch base with her? I don't know the name of her group, but touch base with Claire Ruin. And they had maybe 80 bags of art supplies, which was basically sidewalk chalk, pencils, little kids' paints, things of that nature.
Martha, go ahead. Evanston Cradle to Career is also tracking that very closely. I can put you in touch with Sheila Mary, who can talk. I think she was the one that helped them spearhead that. Let me say this as well, and I think what we should, you all should seriously consider this, is that the Evanston Community Foundation is throwing dollars at efforts. I think that, Natalie, I'm not trying to put more work on you, but perhaps you and I could potentially work on writing a grant. I mean, like I said, I helped write the grant for the Evanston, and they gave us $25,000. But there are just no stipulations because they just, we're all in panic mode. But they are trying to get the dollars into the hands of the people who are touching the people. And I think it would be a no-brainer for them, having worked with them over the years, it would be a no-brainer that we could put together and get some additional funding to help with what you're trying to do. Yeah.
We've been working with them this year. We received some grant funding for our after-school program. So yeah, absolutely. I know, and we can continue to talk about this outside the meeting, but just figuring out exactly what we're asking for and what we're going to be doing with it.
And Natalie,
what's that?
Just so you know, the Evanston Community Foundation, they scrapped all their prior vetting. This is a whole new process. Someone donated $1 million and there's a challenge for match. and they literally are trying to give $25,000 grants to programs without all the vetting in
That's
those
amazing.
past type of applications. So it's a much easier process.
Oh, it is. And I can tell you both with the Latinas grant and the Black Community Grant, we wrote the grant. So we turned in the grant on Friday. On Monday, they told us we had it and come pick up our check. So, I mean, literally, your check is ready, come pick it up. And so their goal, the Community Foundation right now, is to get money into the hands of people right now. And we have a lot of people who are going to be impacted. They're not, for whatever reason, eligible for the stimulus money. We have lots of undocumented immigrants. We're getting money into their hands, and we're having to jump through hoops because they're undocumented. They often don't have bank accounts, so we've got to get them cash. And the foundation is like, fine, give them cash, however you have to do it. So yeah, Dan is absolutely right. Is that they have and they've released their organizations that they have given money to reallocate the money in the way that they see fit. So there's lots of opportunity there.
That's excellent.
At both of my schools at Washington and Lincoln, what we've done is been able to distribute gift cards to Target so that families can use that card to shop according to their needs. So it might be food, or it might be clothing, or other household needs, but that's one option too versus cash.
That's great. Brian, is that okay? Can we apply for grants for this fiscal year?
Oh, I just wrote a note to talk to Jerry about a in-year grant, and of course this is a very unusual time, so we'll discuss it tomorrow morning. I have no idea.
Great.
I don't
Thank
think
you for that information. Dan.
What's that, Pat?
Can we move on to the next subject in the agenda?
Yeah, so I think we have pretty well covered the Ready update. Pat, FEM, did you have anything else that you want to add?
No, not at all.
Okay. So I know, just lastly, I had one other note that I was going to say. I know that the interviews with partners and individuals that you had mentioned you would be planning as part of this equity work. You had a list going, I think, of people you wanted to reach out to. So I would say, and I know we've already talked about this, but I'm just making sure everybody else knows that that's a piece that you can plan to move forward with. As much as you and the other individuals you're interviewing are all, on board with and okay with moving forward, that's one of the pieces that can keep moving right now. So,
and I have interviewed, me and my staff have interviewed some 52 organizations and individuals to date. We're hoping to get to 150. It would be great for you all if you could provide us with a list of your partner organizations that we might not have thought about, or perhaps I can give you the partner organization that we know about. And now that we can flesh out in that list. But yes, absolutely. I'd love to talk with the board again. I'll run that through Natalie to see if she can find a time to be able to meet with you all individually for 15 or 20 minutes, and then also to do some training. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think if we could shoot to have the list that you two can put together, something that we can all look at by next board meeting, just so that
Absolutely.
if anyone has additional things, additional, suggestions to that they want to add, and anything that we collectively notice might have been missed, that would be great.
Well, and I would like to propose that perhaps I can send that out as early as 2 weeks from now, so that you can see who we're already interviewing and can potentially add to that. And as I talk to board members and staff members and they give me information, we should definitely get that out much earlier, because it only helps to build that list.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, well, that sounds great. And I feel really good that we can move forward in some of these ways. And, we'll see what COVID has in store for us moving forward past 2 weeks from now. But I'm glad we can get some of this started. So in terms of the next agenda item, I guess we'll just move into those items, and then people can table them as they would like to. So we did have it on the agenda. Old business was the this perpetual barbecuing in the parks item, and that was yours, Matt.
Yes, I moved to table what's listed as 7A, the barbecue policy, until next month.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So our next one was also from you, Matt, and that was the update on policy. It's inspired by the IAPD self-assessment.
I moved to table what's listed as 8A, the policy updates until next month.
And is there a second?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what Matt said.
I moved to table what's marked as 8A on the agenda until next
I'll
month.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next was 8B, and that's discuss and approve the bid for the 908 Seward rear studio roof. And Brian had recommended that we go ahead with this one. So we'll hear from him about these bids.
Hey, we put out the bid. It was in the Evanston Review for 2 weeks. I don't know how many local roofers are working, but no local roofers bid. Seal Tight exterior from Stager, Illinois, bid $8,400. ATP Enterprise from Northfield, Illinois, they did our roof last spring, bid $12,500. And J&F Chiatello Construction from Dyer, Indiana, bid $8,530. I called references on all of them. ATP did a great job for us, but they're $3,500 more expensive. Seal Tight is from Stager, Illinois, and they did a great job. They work all the way up through the Chicago area to Gurnee, Illinois. They were the low bidder, and Chiatello Construction also had great recommendations from their reference list. So to move forward, I would recommend we go with Seal Tight, and I'd get them up here next week, sign a contract, and get this done by May 15th-ish.
Were you able to talk to anybody about Seal Tight?
What's that?
Did you talk to any of the references
Oh,
from
yeah.
Seal Tight?
I talked to all three references, all three companies, and we know.
Did you talk to any of the,
What's that?
Did you talk to anybody that has had business with them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have their reference sheet right here, and won't write down it. And basically, fine job, professional, thorough workers, on time, got it done in a timely fashion from 3 or 4 of the references. So I talked to the owner out there, and basically we're small potatoes, but he said they can get it done. It's a union shop, so they will pay more than prevailing wages with benefits. So basically, all three companies would be good in my opinion, but the low bidder is $8,400 Seal Tight on the state.
So you're recommending Seal Tight?
Yeah, at $8,400. We budgeted $14,000, so it's going to come in way under.
Brian, do you have any sense of why we're looking at quotes from companies that are, at least 2 of them quite a ways away? I mean, and why there were no local companies that bid?
I do. So I talked to Hanson Roofing several times, not on this specific bid. Hanson does not want to bid and pay prevailing wage. So his issue is confusing his staff. So for instance, if they were to bid and win a project at the city of Evanston or Ridgeville Park District, they might have to pay $34 an hour plus benefits, which might equal $50-some an hour. I don't know, but he won't do it because he'd have to go back to his other wage. And the guy said, well, wait a minute, I like that $54 an hour with benefits. It's the stuff like that. So he does not bid on city, Ridgeville, or county projects because of prevailing wage. But union shops have no problem because they're already paying much higher wage.
Okay.
Seal Tight is a union shop.
I'll make a motion, we accept the Seal Tight bid for $8,400.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so the next item 8C in new business was to discuss Juneteenth support. I will, it doesn't say my name there, but I'm pretty sure that that's my agenda item. So I'm going to move to table 8C.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so call of the commissioners, is that something that we're going ahead with, or that would in and of itself would be tabled as well?
I'd like to do it quickly.
Okay. Do you want to start, Matt?
Sure. I just want to thank Brian, Natalie, Ruben, and Marcos for really stepping up. I've been real proud of how Ridgeville has weathered this particular storm, and particularly with the food distribution. Brian, Marcos, and Ruben have gone, above and beyond to make sure kids in our community are getting food. So thank you. And Natalie, too, I've really been impressed with the online programming. I think it's great. So thanks for all your work.
Thank you.
I'd like to second that too. I think you're doing a great job.
Fabulous.
Yes, I agree. Is that, should we formally go around, or were those your thoughts as additional commissioners there, Debbie and Pat and Dan?
I pass.
You're passing, okay. Dan?
Ditto, Matt. I very much appreciate and I'm very proud of our district's COVID response and how we're reaching out to our community. Also want to just give a shout out to our community members that are suffering. It's not going unnoticed. Just in my little social work role these last 5 weeks, I've been able to help the homeless families that have come my way, and also been able to help some of the families that are struggling with the food by distributing food cards. It's my understanding that, in my experience, that a high number of our constituents are suffering day to day, and it's not easy. So in that context, I just want to say that I am especially proud of our staff for being able to provide services under this context. So thank you.
Okay, Pat, did you have anything additional? Pat McCourt?
No, I didn't. Thanks.
Okay. I just want to reiterate really, that I'm just so excited that we can move forward with equity work, even in this context of experiencing the COVID-19 crisis. I don't want to see equity issues ever considered something that should, be tabled or put on hold. It inherently feels inequitable to even consider, tabling that kind of work if it is something that we can still engage in the logistics that are required. So I just want to say once again that I'm feeling really good that we can continue, and I want to thank you, Dr. Effiam, for your assistance to us as a park district in doing all of that work. And I look forward to hearing more about how we're actually moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so because there were no citizen comments, and Natalie, we haven't received any since then somehow, right? Okay. So then I would motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Be
Thanks for
safe, everybody.
Good night.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.